guys can hear me. Let me just share my screen. Thank you for that introduction. All right, let me know if you guys can see my screen. Okay ba?
Yes.
All right, cool. So actually I've renamed the session because I felt like it's not going to give justice to what I'm about to share. So the actual session is about microservice architecture, how to fully maximize the use of cloud, API, FinTech, and blockchain to deliver a fully digital ecosystem. And the use case in this session would be digital life insurance ecosystem, which is what we're doing in Singlife. So for the main kind of topic at hand that I want to share with you guys is insurance really that far behind? When I joined the industry 2-3 years ago, there was a myth that the banking industry is 10 years behind the digital world, and the insurance industry is 10 years behind the banks. So it means 20 years behind the digital world. I'm here to debunk this myth and show you that innovations can happen in this space and actually in any industry for that matter. And the way to do it is by building solid microservice architecture and choosing the right technologies and people. All right, so the use case that I'm about to share with you today is our entry to market and the partnership with Gcash. So unlike other insurance systems, now you go through with agents, you go through in their online shop, but at the end of that journey, there's an agent that you have to talk to. What we did is we built a microservices portal that would allow us to offer our products within the Gcash app and offer it to their existing target audience. Now, the Gcash partnership is our first digital network partner, and we are actively looking for more partners. Partners that can plug and play with us with their KYC APIs and payment APIs. So the way we did it is, by building the microservices portal, we simply just embedded it on top of Gcash. Now, the experience is you actually don't leave Gcash. It's just within Gcash from purchase and up to claims. You pay via your Gcash wallet. We get your KYC through the Gcash wallet. And when we do have to pay claims, we pay you through your Gcash wallet. So this is actually one of the first initiatives of what we call an open insurance initiative in the Philippines, where we partner and work with other digital wallets in the Philippines to offer and to reach the uninsured population in the Philippines. These are the reasons why being left out is no longer possible. Like I said, I'm here to share with you that innovations can happen in any industry. and choosing the right tech matters. If you believe your company is that far behind, I don't think it's because of tech anymore, nor because of any regulatory issues. Tech advancement has been happening several years already, and the Insurance Commission and the Banco Central in this space have been very beneficial in the industry's digital transformation. I'd like to talk about what digital transformation really is. For me, digital transformation is all about the mindset and making sure you choose the right tools to achieve it. In the past decade, there have been several emerging technologies that have made it possible, like what's in the screen. So, for example, cloud, cloud has been with us since the early 2010s. I think I remember using AWS as early as 2012 or 2013. I was one of the first cloud guys that built on top of AWS. So cloud computing is the on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage and computing power, without direct active management by the user. I want to focus on that last phrase, without direct active management by the user. So compared to managing your own server or your own data center, which is in this case on premises, you manage the whole thing from networking up to applications. Now, with cloud infrastructure as a service, or for example, EC2 in AWS, you don't have to manage networking up to visualization. You only have to manage the OS up to applications. And then when you go to the next level, which is platform as a service, you don't even have to manage the OS, the middleware, and runtime. For example, services such as DynamoDB or RDS, AWS Database as a Service. You don't have to manage the underlying OS anymore. You just have to know whether it's MySQL, Postgre, or I think there's MongoDB already. And then software as a service is the more advanced stuff that you don't even have to manage the application. You're kind of renting the application on the go. One of the basic explanations of cloud computing is what we call pay-per-use. It means you only pay the runtime. So for example, if you have an EC2 that's running 9 to 6, no? So you're only going to pay the server from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then the rest, when it's turned off, you don't pay for it. That was one of the key kind of convincers of the finance departments before. I remember back in 2013, 2014 when I was with Globe. Instead of them investing in big servers already that would last for the next 5 years, we only pay for what we use, at least at the onset. So if you have less than 1 million users, if you use it the right way, it's not gonna cost you much. So this is very small, pero this is basically a high level view of how we've maximized our AWS or our cloud setup. It's completely decoupled. It's completely lightweight. So for example, if you guys are familiar with an S3 bucket, the front end is actually hosted in an S3 bucket, very static, and the orchestration happened behind the scenes. Unlike in other systems na in one server, there's the front end, there's the middle layer, there's the back end, there's the database, or what we call the monolithic setup. This is how decoupling works in AWS. So for example, in this case, different Lambda functions or different APIs working as back-end logic to your environment. Now, I mentioned about making it very easy for the developers in terms of using cloud, no? So in our case, we've completely maximized the use of DevOps approach. So we've created pipelines that would basically automate everything from deployment to production. In the old days, there's what we call a developer and then a systems administrator. The sysad is in charge of deploying code into the servers. In the digital era, or at least for as long as I can remember now, there's no more systems administrator, at least in the past 5 years of experience that I have. It's already the software engineers working as DevOps, maintaining the system, and they don't even need access to the servers every day. what we do is from GitHub, we basically automate deployment to, for example, in this case, S3. So, for example, a developer commits a change, and the lead kind of decides to merge it. What happens is it uh, triggers an API call to the code pipeline, code build, and automatically deploys to the S3, which is our front end. This is the same case as our backend pipeline, but a little bit more complicated because we are using API gateway and Lambda. So the orchestration is happening in our API gateway and Lambda. So from GitHub, it still Max uses code pipeline, code build. But in this case, because it has to deal with two components, we're going through CloudFormation. And then the artifacts are stored in an S3 bucket. So the pipeline principles we do, or to kind of fully really maximize the concept of DevOps. So we have separated them into different branches: dev, staging, and then production. And each step will have its own automation. So for example, at the on the staging, the pipeline is expected to execute the end-to-end automation testing during the code build before deploying to its respective environment. And then once we deploy, of course, the QA engineer will perform additional manual tests in the staging environment before signing off the green light to deploy to prod master branch. And when I say signing off, it's just a matter of clicking it, and then eventually it will be built and deployed into the production environment. No developer, no QA, no architect will need to access the environments just to do deployment. So gatekeeping is no longer the norm. So it's really empowering the developers to fully build and deploy their code. Now, the second initiative that I showed earlier is API. So basically, API is an application programming interface. It's a connection between systems. It's a type of software interface offering a service to other pieces of software. So it's kind of like the way to communicate from one component to another. Or in this case, how an API works is basically from the front end app, or from any application, you do an API request to the server or database, and then the response is provided recently via a JSON payload. So you don't kind of call the services directly. You basically call the services via an API payload. So yeah, that's how they communicate with each other. Actually, I'll show you an example of how they work later on the ecosystem. Now, the third one is big data. It's a field that treats ways to analyze, systematically extract information from, or otherwise deal with data sets that are too large or complex to be dealt with by traditional data processing application software. At the moment, we can't claim that we're doing big data because we've only started and we only have over a year of production data. But the principles behind big data, we're already doing. Even if we're not there yet, we are already establishing our data lake, and all the systems under the ecosystem will push data to the data lake. So later on, when we do have enough data, and we can call it big data already, we can study and analyze what we have, and we may be able to develop new products out of it. For our data lake initiatives, we are using Airflow and Snowflake for our warehouse. It's very efficient it's much easier pulling the data from S3 and creating it into what Snowflake can store. So FinTech, I think the fourth item on the initiatives is FinTech. It's a technology and innovation that aims to compete with traditional financial methods in the delivery of financial services. It's an emerging industry that uses technology to improve activities in finance. So I think the most known example of FinTech is payment gateway. So for example, instead of, if you have an online shop, instead of having an API connection with BPI, BDO, all the banks, and then Visa, MasterCard, you subscribe to a payment gateway, like for example, Magpie, Stripe, and then let them do the integrations with the banks, and you only have to integrate with them. So that means your payments, acceptance, and then disbursement will be handled by the payment gateway, or it's actually a payment orchestration in this case. This is the most common fintech product out there. In our case, with the use of fintech, we only allow purely digital transactions from the purchase to claims, and I'll also show that later. The last initiative on the this one is blockchain. So blockchain is a system of recording information in a way that makes it difficult or impossible to change, hack, or cheat the system. A blockchain is essentially a digital ledger of transactions that is duplicated and distributed across the network, across the entire network of computer systems on the blockchain. In our case, our core policy system is based on blockchain. It takes the functionality typically found in a legacy system and creates an object model on a blockchain. And because of this, we are able to stretch our products, our customer experience, and business model. This allowed for us to create an event-triggered environment. I will go through later on how blockchain works for our customer experience. So now that we know the key initiatives that enable digitalization, I'd like to go through kind of what this is all about, or what you can maximize them for. And in this case, microservices, how you connect these services, how you connect or build an architecture that can enable your digital ecosystem. So microservices are an architectural and organizational approach to software development, where software is composed of small independent services that communicate over well-defined APIs. These services are owned by small self-contained teams. So in this case, so for example, like I mentioned, no, the monolithic approach, wherein in one server, in one environment, you have the front end, you have the middle layer, you have the application, the database, for example. What you do with microservices is you break them down into different components. So for example, different components such as the KYC, know your customer, SSO, single sign-on, document generation, stuff like that. Sorry, can you share that? I think I can share the PowerPoint later after the discussion. So yeah, in our case, guys, the way we've built our ecosystem is basically really dependent on the microservice principles. And the benefits of building it this way is we can build it as fast as we can, as light as we can. Actually, I'll share with you the characteristics and benefits of microservice. This is actually based on AWS. So characteristics means autonomous and specialized. Each component service in a microservice architecture can be developed, deployed, operated, and scaled without affecting the functioning of other services. So, for example, in your customer journey, you have your entry level, or the top funnel, which is the know your customer, the login, the purchase journey, and then you have the after sales. In our case, claims processing, submission of documents for proof, stuff like that. So those are broken down into different components, diba? And then the immediate benefit of decoupling all of those services is compared to the monolithic approach. Now, if something breaks, the whole thing breaks, the whole customer journey breaks, your whole e-commerce system breaks. With the use of microservices and decoupling, what happens is, for example, only your claims processing is broken. That specific component is not working. Because it's decoupled from the whole ecosystem, it means you can still accept clients coming in for the purchase journey, because your KYC, your SSO, your purchase, your payment is still working. And also works the other way around. If, for example, your payment gateway is not working, at least on the after sales, you can still accommodate your existing customers. So parang the concept of parang outages, it's actually no longer happening in a very efficiently built ecosystem. Yung outages talaga is if for example, Cloudflare itself broke down, or AWS Singapore, all of the availability zones there breaks down. Pero in terms of your application, at least your ecosystem, parang if you build it right, it's never gonna go down. It's not gonna work. Some components may not work, but the whole system should still be functional, and you can still cater to your customers. Now, benefits of microservices: agility, flexible scaling, easy deployment, technological freedom, reusable code, and resilience. And all these things, and this is, by the way, again, from AWS, all these things can be maximized if you do cloud right. The DevSecOps approach, the purely decoupling of the services. Actually, now we're not even using EC2 anymore. In our case, like I mentioned, we're using S3 for front end, using API gateway and Lambda functions on our back end. We're using DynamoDB for our transactional databases. So we're not even using the more traditional cloud computing. We're more into the advanced stuff, because if, for example, you build microservices but you still use EC2 for all of them, and use Elastic Load Balancer for all of those components, it's gonna be very expensive, and at the same time, I don't think it's gonna be as resilient, and the flexible, and even the deployment would be much more difficult. So all these things combined, with with all these principles combined, and to share with you how fast we've built our products, the one I showed you earlier. When we started, and this is going to be talking about flexibility as well and agility. So when we started back in 2020, what we developed was a dengue protection product, because dengue is very famous in the Philippines, right? And then I think on the third month, right when we were about to launch, pandemic happened. The lockdown started March. So we decided now, I mean, it's stupid to launch a dengue product during this pandemic. So what we did was we took a step back, we redesigned the whole thing, and we would now offer a dengue plus COVID protection. And from the original design to the pivoted design, it took us only 6 months to launch. Parang the first code that was written was around February 2020, and we launched the product in Gcash in August. So that's how fast we were able to build our ecosystem to offer our first products in Gcash. Now, to show you the ecosystem, this is a very top level view of what it looks like. This is the ecosystem where we host all our services that enable the customer experience. At the top here, the Gcash app. Like I said, I think a lot of you guys have Gcash naman. So basically, we embedded our microservices portal inside the Gcash app, inside the G-Insure. So if you have Gcash, you can check it out now. Go through G-Insure, and you'll see our product cards there. So those product cards are actually our, what we call the portal. For the lack of a better term, it's basically the microservices portal, because it's the customer experience behind the Singlife insurance product. So yeah, that's the portal. That's what we the tech behind it is a simple S3 bucket actually, and React.js. And then we have the middleware where integrations and orchestration happens. This is basically the API gateway that connects to different Lambda functions. At the core here, we have the microservices, a bunch of APIs. For example, the ones I mentioned: SSO, KYC, document generation, meaning creating the PDF, notifications engine, SMS. So all of the components that would run that would support the customer experience, no? So our integration with the Gcash KYC and the payment gateway is done via APIs, via the Lambda functions here. And then here on the right side, this is our core policy admin system. This is where we create the products and we create the customer policies. So we have 3 nodes under the blockchain right now. We have the Singlife node, where our products are hosted. We have the main blockchain node that orchestrates, and currently the first partner we have Gcash node. So basically, diba, it's distributed, and it's much more difficult to change, and like what blockchain says, it's almost it's impossible to hack because you can't really change it. And I'll share the benefits of blockchain later on. So with our digital ecosystem, no, with the right tools and the right tech stack under any ecosystem, anyone can enjoy the benefits and are able to achieve these things, flexibility, speed, efficiency, scalability, affordability, and lastly, and the most important, is personalization. This is actually not that, parang this is taken for granted sometimes. Personalization means, kasi if you are able to achieve all these five, the next step is personalization. Your CX or your UX, you adjust them based on the information that you get from the customers. For example, reviewing your top funnel. Why isn't my customer choosing this product versus this product, or the journey that they do? Where do they drop off? Based on the information that you get, and because you can easily deploy, you're scalable, the way you build is much faster, it's affordable, personalization can happen. And I think for over a year, I forgot already which version we are on right now. The UX have changed significantly from the August launch last year because we listen to the customers and their pain points. You don't have, because of this, you can't be a very proud CX company na you stick with your CX. You have to adapt based on your customers. So the last item here is, because of digitalization, you are able to achieve personalization. So before I go through the how blockchain is used in our ecosystem, in our customer experience, these are just some things that makes insurance on blockchain works. Number one is the immutable ledger. Diba? Immutable ledger means nothing can be changed within the system. So the first benefit is layering out the policy and product setup works nicely in a blockchain environment, especially for the more complex products of benefit steering. So yeah, building flexible policy structure and benefits coverage is much easier in the blockchain structure. This is one of the key reasons why we were able to partner with digital companies like Gcash and our future projects that are on the pipe right now. So what we have is we need to do an off-chain storage because the blockchain is immutable. Pero you have to have an different kind of source for your PIIs or personal identifiable information, like the identity documents or claims information. Those are separated. And for example, under the Philippine law of National Privacy Commission, a customer has the right to be forgotten, so you can request for deletion. So in other companies, when you do request for deletion, it messes up your historical data or your ledger basically. In this case, because it's stored in an off-chain storage, your ledger of transaction informations will not be affected. Parang it will just be redacted. So you can delete the personal information, but the transactional information are still intact. Because of immutable ledger, it has to be a transaction to change it. There's no such thing as override. And because of the structure, claims triaging is more efficient, especially in low premium products. This keeps claims process cost down. So it's very automated. The way we did our product tiering, for example, the COVID, we have 3 tiers. One is a positive test. So if you don't have any symptoms but you're still positive, you can file for that level 1 claim. So you have some sort of reimbursement for your test. The second is hospitalization, not critical. So you can file for hospital cash depending on the number of days you stay in the hospital. And the third and the critical one is basically the critical level when you stay for X number of days in the ICU. So you get the full amount. So there's nobody reviewing these things in our operations. Parang QA na, we're doing QA, but basically the triaging is done automatically behind the scenes. So when you do file for a claim, it goes through the system, and in like less than 24 hours, we can disburse the payout. So using the processing power of blockchain capability helps create better insurance experience. And as far as I know, I was invited a few months ago in the Copenhagen FinTech. We have the world's first low-cost digital life insurance running on blockchain that is fully digital end-to-end from purchase up to claims. And this is something that we just found out. We didn't really gun for it from the beginning, but because we chose the right tools, we have the right people building it with us, and we were surprised with the benefits that came under it. Last and the most important is the audit, and anyone who has gone through audit can really say that this kind of setup makes it very efficient during the audit process, because there's no such thing as override. So your transactional data is very intact. And for example, any disputes that can happen for claims, for payouts, for refunds, everything is recorded. And I'll show later on how it looks like. So, Singlife building its foundations via blockchain and partnering with digital payments like Gcash, and you saw that them having their own blockchain nodes within the chain, opens the potential for what we call an open insurance initiative in the Philippines. So this is the counterpart of, I think you've heard already about the open API in banking, wherein there's InstaPay, there's PesoNet. Banks are forced to work with each other. Because before it's very difficult. It's actually still difficult now, but with the APIs being enabled by the banks, people can now transact bank to bank on their apps, diba? This is our approach on our end to do open insurance initiative in the Philippines. Now, partnering with Gcash, diba, we're getting their KYC information from Gcash. We're using Gcash as payment method. I think in the future it can go both ways. Na, for example, the customer starts as a Singlife customer when we have fully launched our app. If he goes through Gcash, instead of going through the KYC with Gcash, parang if there's a token that he can use and fetch the information from us, we can also offer that. So this is basically what a bigger ecosystem would look like in the future. So I'll show you now, actually, how the purchase journey and the claims journey is powered by blockchain. This is my mini blockchain 101 for basically the most basic explanation of how it works, using the visualization of our customer journey. So from Gcash, diba, you choose a customer, you choose an insurance product. In the back end, what happens is it fetches the customer KYC details, and then it creates the profile creation. When that happens, you can see now the product packages, the bronze, silver, and gold. From this, what happens is the system pulls product information from the blockchain and then creates a customer profile. So you see here, it's kind of a very simple visualization, but it creates a block of information based on the customer profile. And then based on the product that the customer chose, it creates a new block of information, basically that holds the policy information in a verified state. So you now have a policy that is verified under this customer that we just went through the journey. So the next step is for the customer to proceed with the payment. Diba? So what happens is, backend sends a payment request to Gcash and receives successful payment confirmation. And then policy status is now set in force. So as compared to earlier, diba, we created a policy in a verified state. When we do receive the payment, instead of changing the status here, it creates a new block of information na, hey, I've received the payment. This is now an active policy. So as you can see, it's another node. We did not change the node here. So we created another node that would show that. On the customer side, the customer now receives their policy. What happens behind the scenes is I've mentioned the microservice of document generation, the one that generates the PDF policy, and then it sends the customer an email. So this is the microservices that's working here. So all of these transactions combined from step one to finish, they create new blocks of data for the ledger. As you saw from the visualization, we didn't change anything. From verified, we created another block to show that it's now in force. So that's the purchase journey, and you can go through that in less than 5 minutes. So going through the Gcash G Insure up to receiving your policy takes less than 5 minutes to do so. Now, moving on to the claims side of things. So when customer files a claim, you have to remember first this, try to picture this first, this block of information that we did on the customer journey or on the purchase journey, because we're gonna show that again when we do the claims. Okay. So on the claim side, when the customer files a claim, diba, they have to input information and upload documents. So backend receives information submitted and sends it to the blockchain environment to trigger the claims triaging or the claims process. Now what happens is a claims transaction block is created. So you have another block of information specifically for the claims. When customer chooses the payout method, when it's being reviewed, it's another form of block that's being kind of bashed into the existing blockchain. And then when after reviewing, customer's claim is approved and can now receive the payout in Gcash, it's another block. So we didn't change the original claims transaction block. So the first is creating the transaction block, the second is reviewing, the third is the payout. So there's no data is deleted. It just adds a new block of information like every step of the journey. And that's what we call the immutable ledger. So these are just the benefits of insurance blockchain. You have a single source of truth, role-based access. I think the most important are the distributed and segregated data and the smart contracts. I think the other four is easily achievable with other, even in a simple RDS. But basically, the crucial is distributed and segregated data. Now, by capitalizing on smart technologies, including blockchain, Singlife Philippines can fulfill its purpose of unlocking the potential of money for everyone. Because of our setup, we consider this as our attempt to do plug and play with digital partners. Like, for example, our incoming partner, Investa, we can simply create an Investa node and embed our portal within their app so they can offer their products to the customers. Actually, that's my last slide. And I just want to share with you that before and beyond these tools, the key to success is having the right mindset. The first thing that any organization would need to do to achieve digital transformation is to reshape the culture. Before even investing in any technology, the first step is investing in the right people, because having the right people with you can get you to where you want to go. Innovations can happen in any industry, and if you do it right and you have the right people, diba? So on that note, getting the right people is crucial. And that is what we want to achieve with my other startup naman, Workbean, being a platform to showcase workplace, people, and culture to help job seekers find work where they belong. Marie and the cast can tell you all about it in their respective sessions. Thank you very much.